One of the most important things that we could ever think about if we are thinking about trying to get somewhere in life, in a relationship, in our health, in a goal, in a dream, and that is to differentiate between a problem and a pattern. A problem and a pattern. What is the difference in a problem and a pattern? Well, guess what? We all have problems. You have a relationship, you come across a problem, why'd you do that? Well, I don't like that. And when you did this, I didn't like that. Hey, that's normal. That's not dysfunction. That's human. We all have problems. We try to go reach a goal, for example. And we had a problem, getting going this morning or getting everything organized or, hitting the time schedule or something like that. That's a problem. Problems are there to be solved. So what happens when we have a problem? Well, we solve it, right? You have an interaction in a relationship, you have an interaction that didn't go well, somebody was harsh or somebody didn't listen. You address a problem, the other person goes, "Oh, yeah, you're right. Gosh, sorry, let's do better. What can we do to make that better next time?" And we solve the problem and we move on. And that's how we accomplish goals in life, relationally or otherwise, right? If I'm trying to if I'm trying to write a book, maybe that's a goal I got to reach, and I'm trying to get a chapter finished, but I don't finish it on time, and I got this problem in my schedule. I realize, well, I overschedule. I got too many people calling, so what do? I call them and I rearrange them, and I solve the problem, and then tomorrow I don't have that problem. We're on it. We're off and running. That's how we accomplish things in life. If you want a life of no problems, then don't try to do anything, because anything you're going to do in this world is going to have problems associated with it. That's normal. All right, fine. Solve them. If we solve them, no problem, right? Problem solved, no problem. Now, here's the thing. What if the next time I start to write a chapter, or the next time after that I start to write one, or the next time I have an interaction with my, wife or friend or whoever, and I have that same problem again, or maybe a third time, and I try to solve it like I've been trying to solve it, I'm not seeing the problem, because my problem is not that I got a problem. My problem is now I've got a pattern. Okay. Now, a pattern is what begins to repeat itself. So if I've got a way of interacting that isn't a one-off thing that we fix or happens here and there, or a schedule problem that happens here and there, if I if I got one of those, I can fix it. But if it is recurring and happening over and over and over, then whatever I'm doing to solve that problem is not going to solve it, because I've proven that it doesn't solve it, right? So then I've got to step back and I've got to say, wait a minute, I don't have a problem here. I got a pattern. Every time I try to set up something to happen on this time schedule, then I get derailed. Okay. What's driving that pattern? What's feeding that pattern? Things can only live if they're fed, right? So somebody's got to be feeding it, not starving it. If you starve a pattern, it's going to go away. But if you feed it, somebody's enabling it, or something is enabling it, or circumstances are stepping in and recreating it all the time, then it's going to grow. Same thing in a relationship. Until we sit back and say, you know what, when you and I talk about A, B, or C, have you noticed that every time we end up kind of getting in a bad mood with each other, or, bummed out, or we can't get to resolution, or we start getting angry or critical? We got a pattern here. Let's look back at the pattern. What drives the pattern? Okay. So here's why I'm telling you this, because once something becomes a pattern, it starts to repeat. And once you start to repeat things, now you're developing actual brain circuitry to be able to repeat that. It's sort of like if you got roof running off your house, there's something wrong with the gutter, it's running down this way, and you'll start to notice, every time it rains, it goes down. Well, it's going to start to run down a certain path, and then it's going to pick up more space in that path, and then it's going to keep finding that, and it's going to dig a little trench, and now you've got a pattern. Now you've got wiring for it, so that every time it rains, it's going to go down that path. Okay, now we got a little trench in our soil. Okay, and then it hardens. Well, here's what happens with a pattern. We keep repeating it, it hardens, and pattern becomes character. See, if we have something that we're repeating, then that's our character. I don't mean moral, can be moral, but it might not be. I just mean you got a character in a movie. What can we depend on that character to do? He's always going to look like this. He's always going to say this kind of thing. It's always going to be funny. It's always going to be scary. This one's always going to be serious. Okay. That's character. It's a fixed pattern in the way that we can expect somebody to operate. All right. But once something becomes a character, now you're talking about your DNA and it becomes your identity. There's an old saying, I can't remember who said this. Somebody can Google it. One of the philosophers. Character is destiny. Character is destiny. Okay. Because how we're glued together determines our patterns, and our patterns are going to determine where we end up in life. So if I've got a pattern of, let's say, for example, let's say you got a pre-med student, okay, in college, and they're pre-med, and they got, because I had a lot of pre-med friends, and it's very rigorous. I was kind of half pre-med. I was, pre-graduate school psych. But pre-med is a little more rigorous because you got heavy, heavy, heavy science, lots of organic chemistry and all this stuff. Well, here's what I noticed about my pre-med friends, that they had very, very predictable, the ones that did well, ones that actually made, they had very, very predictable patterns, and they would study in patterns, and they make their flashcards, and they would go and they'd be very disciplined about this because it's the only way to make it through all this stuff. Well, what you would see every now and then is you see one of them, they'd go party or they'd go whatever, or they're just too tired and they say, heck, well, I'm not doing it today. and they would skip it. Well, that's fine. But then you would see some others that would skip it and go out and party, or they're like in the fraternity life, or then they go do it. They skip it, but then they sleep in one more day. Now it's twice. Well, twice felt good. And see, once something begins to be repeated, then it's gaining momentum. So don't let these problems become patterns. And if they do become patterns, then you have to address them unless you like where the pattern is going to take you. Unless you like where the pattern is going to take you. Okay? Because it's usually, a lot of times, not a good place. I say usually if it comes from a problem. On the other hand, patterns, patterns, patterns. Patterns are the best things that we can have if they're patterning good things. If we got a problem, we get up and solve it. We don't procrastinate. If we got a conflict, we get up and solve it. We don't avoid it.